Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi out here in Northern California. How are you? Welcome to the Kissing Cardinal Zentangle class. I'm about to teach this class for the Napa Library, and so I thought I would do a quick video and share it with you. So let's go ahead and talk about the things that we are going to need for class today. I'm going to be working with the Micron PN Pen. I'll be using the IdentiPen for doing the pooling of ink in the background. If you don't have an IdentiPen, you can use a Sharpie or you can use the Faber-Castell brush pen. Those are wonderful for doing that kind of background. I will be working with a graphite pencil. You can see this is a number 2 pencil right here. I will also be working with a tortillon. If you don't have a blending stump or a tortillon, you can always use a Q-tip in lieu of it. You know me, I'm a Prismacolor girl. Grab your Prismacolor pencils. We're going to have a lot of fun with this one. If you don't have Prismacolor pencils, grab whatever color pencils you have and you'll be just fine. Now, you know that I love working on the Genesis tile, but if you don't have the Genesis tile, you can always work in your sketchbook and just draw a square that's 4.5 by 4.5 inches. So let's get started with the Kissing Cardinal class. So before we get started today, you know, this is the holiday season, and I always feel very hurried and rushed during the holiday season, and so I try to take a moment to step back and just enjoy the little things that just make the holiday season so special. And for me, taking a moment to just ground myself during this time is very important. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of a grounding exercise before we actually start creating today. So let's take a comfortable position in our chairs. Let your spine grow comfortably tall. Let your shoulders melt away from your ears. And if you're okay with it, allow your eyes to close for a moment. Noticing the sounds around you. Could be that there's a bird outside chirping, or maybe you hear the wind chime. And then dropping into the sound of your own breath as it's coming in and as it's flowing out. And then beginning to deepen in your breath here as you inhale to the count of 4. And then slowly now exhale to the count of 6. Inhaling to the count of 4. And exhaling to the count of 6. And one last time, in for 4. And exhaling, count of 6. And then just letting your breath return to its natural pace here, and taking a moment to scan through the body and notice any places where you might be holding tension. And just seeing if you can soften in those places just for a moment. Maybe your shoulders, maybe your jaw or your eyebrows, softening in the belly and in the hips, and just being right here, right now. And taking in a nice deep breath, let it go with a sigh. And let's get ready to create. Okay, so I have in my hand my Zentangle pencil. This is just a number 2 pencil here. And we're going to start this class a little bit differently than what we normally do. You can see up at the top here, I'm going to start by putting a little dot right up at the top in the middle for myself. This is going to be a guide to build our string for class today. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to divide the tile in half. just like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing all over again. So I'm just going to go ahead, come up to the top, and I'm going to divide the tile in half. Now you'll notice that I have 4 squares in here, and you can see that my lines aren't perfect. It's just fine. We're using this just as a string, and I've gone very, very lightly with those lines because we will eventually be taking them out. A string is a way that we divide the space in Zentangle so that we have a way of creating inside of a confined space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in with my pencil, and I'm going to draw a square right around the center piece of our tile here. So you can see there's my little square, and I would say the square is about 1 inch in diameter here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to make some lines that come out from the square. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the left-hand side, and you can see that I have this line right here. I'm going to go ahead and let that line continue up, and you can see that it's paralleling the original string. I'm going to turn my tile clockwise here, and I'm going to do that again. I'm just going to go ahead and let that line go up, and then I'm going to do it again, letting the line go up. And you can see there's a little wiggle and wobble in my line today. That's just fine. Letting it go up. So now you can see that I've done that 4 times. I'm going to come right back to this one that we have right here that's connected to the square here, and I'm going to do a line that is parallel and is auraing that line. An aura means exactly what you think it does. It's an echo line. I'm going to continue to turn my tile clockwise here, and I'm going to come right back to where I was, and all I'm doing is just paralleling that first line. Turning the tile and paralleling that first line. Turning the tile and coming right back up to the top again. So you can see now that we've created this beautiful string. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up my pen here, and I happen to have my Pigma pen in my hand. This is the same as the Micron PN pen, so if you are working with the PN, that's what you'll continue to work with. So I'm just going to go ahead and start to get that little square started here. I'm doing what we call an overdraw. And my pen is a little bit cold, I must admit. It's very, very cold in the house right now. We are in Truckee, and my pen is a little bit frozen. So I'm just going to go ahead and come down and touch the square. Same thing right here. And touch. And then I'll do the same thing again. So I'm just coming down. Turning the tile. Coming down. Reconnecting. And last time right here. Just taking our time here. Sometimes if you rush, your lines give you away. And so that is what we're looking for our string for our class today. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to tangle. So you can see that I still have that initial string that we did with the graphite pencil. In my hand I have one of those really great gummy erasers. These are wonderful because they don't leave any mess on your tile as you're working. And so I'm just going to take away the string because now I have what I'm looking for here, right? So I'm going to let that go, and we're going to talk about our first tangle of the day here. So the first tangle that we're going to do today is called Walk the Line. And this is by Chris Titus, and she's just a wonderful tangler. And I'm so grateful for her creating this tangle because it's just one of those gorgeous tangles that gives you a lot of bang for your buck without a lot of effort. So I'm just going to make a little square here so that we can work inside. And to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to start with a series of arcs. We're going to do a tangulation on Walk the Line. So I'm just going to go ahead and do an arc with an aura. And then you're going to see me create these really nice little wavy lines in here. And I'll do a second set to go right off of it. Now I'm going to turn this on its side here, and you're going to see me come from the bottom, and I'm going to make almost like a teardrop shape that's going to come up and touch down. And then I'm going to jump off the side and let it come up and just touch the border. And you'll notice that as I'm going, I'm getting these kind of funny looking triangles in between these elongated teardrops that I have here. I'm going to come over here and drop in over here. And this is such a cool tangle. I just love it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to puddle in, and puddling means I'm pooling my ink into these kind of funny looking triangle shapes. These are called interstices. And what I love about Walk the Line is that you can layer it as much or as little as you want. So if you wanted to just do one tier, you could do one tier. If you wanted to do two, you could do two, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to show you what the first tier is going to look like, and then we're going to go for it together, okay? So you can see how awesome that looks. It's a really, really fun tangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in right in here, and we're going to start in that lower left-hand corner. And I'm going to start by bringing in an arc, and then I'll do an aura, and another one, and one more for good luck. Now, before I get to starting in with my waves and my Walk the Line, I am going to do some detail work inside of these auras. In the first one, not here, but in this first one, I'm just going to start by bringing in some lines. And I'm just going in very, very gently. I'm taking my time and just creating a little bit of texture here. Now, if you need to pause me while you do your work, go ahead and just hit the pause button. Otherwise, if you're ready to rock and roll, I'm just going to keep on going. In the second tier, I'm going to do a string of pearls. And so you're going to see these nice circular orbs that are touching each other. Just like so. Now you can see in between I have those strange little triangles again that I was talking about beforehand, and I'm just going to go in and pool my ink into those areas, and you want to take your time. Just like so. And that's going to give me a really neat kind of feel when I start to bring in these other waves. It's going to have a nice juxtaposition of it. Now I'm going to go ahead and start to bring in my waves, and I want my waves to kind of work with the curvature of these lines in here. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to start to create these waves. There's one, and I think I can do two. There's 2. So once I have that, I'm going to come in just like I did before, and I'm going to come up, create my arc, and drop down. And I'm going to start to go off to the side now and create these really narrow arches. And each one of them is touching that little wavy line. Just checking in and making sure you're breathing as you're creating. We're all human here, and we have the tendency to tighten up a little bit when we meet a challenge. See if you can soften here. Let your breath be full. Let your shoulders melt away from your ears. And if you're furrowing your brow, see if you can let your eyebrows relax and your forehead soften. I'm going to go ahead and do the second set, and then I'll come back and pool. So I'm going to come into this set right here and just start by creating those cool wavy lines. And you know, when I saw this, I thought, oh, you know, this would make a great poinsettia for a class. So I'm kind of thinking about a poinsettia, even though it doesn't really look like one. Once we get it colored in and all of that, it's going to be really fun and very festive. Just going over to the other side, taking my time. And there you have it. Really, really cool. So let's go ahead and zoom in on this for a minute. So we have these really neat little triangles in between each. And I always start from the middle and work my way out. And remember, with these pens, these Micron pens, the lighter you go, the more the ink flows. So really just let your pen barely touch the page. So I'm just getting in here and just pooling my ink into these areas. And you can turn the tile to make it work for your hand here. Taking my time. Now I've got that set done. I'm going to come up here and start the second set. Now you get the idea of it, so I'm going to let you loose and do your own thing. When we come back, we're going to start to do this on the opposite side of the tile, and I'll start us out on that, and then I'll set you loose on that as well. So go ahead and pull your epaulettes, have some fun with it, and then when we come back, we'll do this on the other side of the tile. Have fun. Okay, so we've got this side in, and now I'm going to come up here into this corner, and I'm going to do the same exact thing that I started with here. So I'm going to start by just doing a soft arc, and then I'll go ahead and do an aura, and another aura, and one more. Okay, so those are our first auras in there. And then remember how we started in with the lines. So I'm just going to go in with some lines first. And you can turn the tile to make it work for your hands here. I'm giving myself a little bit of a challenge here because I want you to see where and what direction I'm moving from. And then I'm going to go ahead and come in and do a string of pearls right over the top. So we're taking our time here, Remember, those orbs are touching so that we get those funky little triangles. And then once again, pooling the ink. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It will all work out in the end. So you can see that I've done that. Now I'm just going to turn the tile to make it work for my hand here. You can see here's the arc that we have. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do more waves that are in that same kind of feel as that arc. So you're going to see me come in and I'm going to go and do a nice wave. And then I'm going to do another one. And then once again, we're going to start out by creating those arches. Remember, we're just jumping off the side, coming up, and touching the border. Jumping off the side, come up, touch the border. Super fun, super easy. You know where we're going now because this is now a repetition of what we just did on the other side, which is wonderful about Zentangle because the repetition lets your mind relax, right? You know what you're doing. So I'm going to let you guys go for it and do this side and finish it up. And then when we come back, we're going to start in with some new tangles. Now remember, shoulders soft, breath is long and full, and just let yourself enjoy what you're doing, okay? All right, have some fun with this. I'll see you in a minute. Isn't that so cool? I love this tangle. Thanks, Chris. This is just one of my favorite tangles, and it just gives you so much bang for your buck. So pretty, and once we come in and do some shading on it, it's just going to be mwah, so great. So we are going to move on to our next part, and the next part is one of my favorite parts. We are going to place a cardinal inside of the piece, and I don't know about you, but whenever I see cardinals, I always think of the holidays. So I'm going to come in and we're going to do a tangle called the Kissing Cardinal, and you can turn this cardinal every which way, and it's just a really fun particular tangle. So what this is I'm going to come in and I'm going to do almost like a crescent moon upside down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to curve it over just a little bit and give it just two little feathers on the top of its head. I'm going to drop in and I'm going to let it extend and create the tail. Now once I have that, I'm going to come in and I'm going to give him his beak, and I'll give him a little smiley face. And then I'm going to create his face just by creating a little teardrop shape right up at the top. I'll come in, I'll give him his eye, and then I'll go ahead and I will pool my ink around his eye. Now, if you want to, you could pool this all in with black and come in with your white gel pen. But for those of you who don't have a white gel pen, this is a great way to do it. And then once I have that, I'm going to create his wing, and we'll be tangling in his wing. And then I'll give him some feet to just come down. Now, if you wanted to, you could give him a little branch to stand on, which is super fun and super sweet. Okay, so that is our cardinal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in and I'm going to bring it into the piece here. Now I want you to notice the positioning of the piece. You can see that I've got this flower here and this flower here. Notice the direction that they're moving in, and I'm going to be working in these vertical pieces now. You can see that I've got my pencil in my hand here. This is just so that if you aren't happy with your cardinal, you can always make an adjustment. So I'm just going to come in a little bit close to my border, but enough so that I can create a beak. And I'm just going to start by creating that arc. You'll notice that the lower part of the arc is not as high, so it has a little bit of a diagonal to it. I'm going to let this arc over a little bit, and then I'm going to do the feathers, and then I'm going to drop down just a little bit, and I'm going to come all the way down, 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 create his little tail, and then I'll come in and I'll do a little beak for him, and his little face. Once I have that, I can come in and I can do his wing, and then I can do his little legs. Now if you want to give him a little branch to stand on, you can just do a little diagonal line just like so, and it'll look like he's holding onto a branch there. Okay, so that's going to be the first cardinal that we do. And then you're going to see me pick up my pen and I'm going to do what we call an overdraw. So just the same way that we started here. Nice soft arc, coming in, creating his little feather, and then once again creating his tail, legs coming down, and then go ahead and give him his beak with a little smiley face, teardrop shape in his face, and his little eye, and then pooling in the ink. So you can see why I had you work in pencil first, just so that you get it the way that you want it. Super fun. Pulling in his face, and then I'm going to go ahead and give him his little branch that he's standing on, just like that. Coming in and doing his wing, and there's our cardinal. Super fun. We will do the cardinal a little bit differently at the bottom, and so I'm just going to take you one step at a time. Okay, so enjoy what you just did, and then when we come back we'll do our other cardinal. So I know that people get a little bit nervous when you do a mirroring of a image, and so we're going to just take this one step at a time, the regular old-fashioned Zentangle way here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right in here, just like I did on the other one, and I'm going to come in fairly close to the border here, and I'm just going to go ahead and create my little arc. Remember, the bottom half of the arc is a little bit lower. Now once I have that, I'm going to let it curve back, do his little feather, drop down, and then once again coming all the way down, creating his tail. Once I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do his beak. And then I'll do his little face. Remember, all cardinals look different, so it doesn't have to be exactly the same. And then once again, letting his little legs drop down and creating a little branch for him to stand on. Just like so. We'll give him his little wing, and this little guy is good to go. So I'm going to come in just the same way I did, and I'm going to ink it in. Coming up, making his little feathers on the top, dropping down, creating that little line. It's okay if you want to practice these. And there you go. A little smiley face to boot. And then we'll go ahead and we'll put his little eye in. And we'll pull. So I did a cardinal class, I'd say this is almost 2 years ago, for Jingle Jangle Tangle, which is a really fun retreat that happens every year, and it's actually going to be happening this weekend. And whenever I think of the holidays, I always think of these cardinals, and that was such a fun class that we did for Angie and her group. And I hope that maybe you'll get to try it, or perhaps you did this year, and you're doing this class after you did Jingle Jangle Tangle, which is always fun. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let you work on this, and then when we come back, we're going to do a really fun tangle called Oops Me by Hani Nura. So I'm going to take this away here, and we're going to learn a new tangle, and this is called Oops Me. It's not a new tangle in the Zentangle world, but it might be a new tangle for you. And Oops Me is one of those really cool tangles that's got a lot of movement to it. And so the way that Oops Me is done is generally you go ahead and you do this kind of whirlwind shape right there. And then inside, she does these little circles that go inside, which is really kind of cool. And then on the outside of the piece here, she'll do this little kind of drawing in of the piece and pull it in. So you can see that I'm just quickly pulling in. I would be doing this a little bit more slowly if we were all in a room together. And then she does these lovely little waves that come down the side of Oops Me. And it just has such a nice sway to it. Now, when I was looking at this tangle, I was thinking to myself, how can I do something that looks like mistletoe? And so what I did for mine was I came in and I did a little fescue at the top. And instead of doing all of what's going on in here, I'm just going to go ahead and do these really soft lines that make this look like mistletoe. And it really has a nice sway to it, okay? Now, if you wanted to, you could come in and add those little pieces like Oops Me, but you can leave it plain too. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to build a string for Oops Me, and you'll see what I mean by this in a second. So we want this to have some sway around the back of our cute little cardinals here. And so what this is going to look like is I'm going to come in from behind here, and I'm just going to create a little bit of a curved line. And I'm going to let it drop down right behind, and then I'm going to go ahead and create the top of that Oops Me. Once I have it the way I want it, I'm going to go ahead and start to create those really beautiful swayed lines that just drop in, and you can let it look like it's continuing past the bird. And then I'll come in on this side and I'll do the same. And I'm going to make it look like it's continuing down. And then what I'm going to do is on the other side, I'm going to create another curved line. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a nice soft curved line coming right out. And then I'm going to go ahead and create that teardrop shape again. Once again, soft swayed lines dropping in. You can see that I'm kind of lifting up and bringing my pencil back down. And then I'll come over here and I'll do it. Notice how those lines are lining up a little bit. And I'm letting it come down around his little face, letting it continue so it looks like that's going all the way down. Does that make sense? Hopefully that does. And then you know me, I'm going to pick up my pen and I'm going to do an overdraw. Overdrawing is wonderful because I feel like it gives you a second chance to learn a tangle. It's almost like you have a dress rehearsal and then you have your opportunity to create. So I'm just coming in and creating and inking that in. And then I'll come over to the opposite side and do the same. So once again, creating that line, letting it drop down, down, down. Nice suede line. Coming over here, letting it drop in. Such a pretty tangle. Letting it drop down and down again. And if you want to let it look like it's continuing, you can. So super fun. And if you wanted to, with Oops Me, you could add some berries in. You know, I love the idea of red berries for the holidays, and our little cardinal could be looking for these red berries. And so you can see wherever there's an indentation that I can kind of drop some berries into, I'm going to kind of put them in. So you can see that it's coming over here and over here. Might be able to put one in there. Over here. So I'm being a little random with it. I'm not being overzealous with that. Just some soft berries. And you can see that I've got some interstices here, some of those wild little triangles, and I'll just come in and I'll puddle those in. Super fun, super playful. So go ahead and do this one, and then when we come back, we'll go ahead and we'll add our Oops Me on the other side. Have some fun with us. Remember to breathe. Remember to soften and relax. Okay, so once again, you know, the idea of mirroring. It's not going to be too much of a mirror over here, but because it is different, I wanted to show you how I'm going to go about doing it. So I'm going to do a really nice soft curved line that's coming down right in front of my cardinal here. And I'm just going to go ahead and create that nice teardrop shape up top. And then once again, soft suede lines coming off and building. You can make them as large or as small as you want them to be. And you can see that that has a really nice curve to it. Coming over to the other side and creating those suede lines. Such a fun tangle. Coming in, letting it drop down past the little cardinal there. And then once again, I'm going to come from behind the cardinal here and let this kind of jump up and curve over, creating a little teardrop shape. And once again, nice soft suede lines coming in and down. And then over here as well. Super fun, super easy. So once again, coming in and overdrawing. And you know, this is a great place that if you want to change things up, you can change things up. And letting it come through. Coming over here. And once again, dropping down and letting it come behind. And if you wanted to even let it drop through in here, you could, but I'm just going to leave it alone, I think. So I'm going to come in once again, starting with this little teardrop shape and letting it have that nice soft kind of bowing line. and then letting it just flow through. I'm going to let this one come down. I'm going to skip. I think I did one too many there. And then remember the idea of throwing in some berries for our little birdie to find. So I'm just going to find these nice little indentations and put in some berries. You could do smaller ones next to it if you wanted to. So feel free to play and kind of toss them in wherever you think they would be great. You can come over here and throw some in. So I'm being kind of random about it. Super fun and playful. All right, so go ahead and finish up yours, and then when we come back, we're going to do some pooling of the ink here. You're going to want to have a thicker nibbed pen like a Sharpie, or if you have a really nice thick nibbed pen that I really like is the Identa pen. So if you have one of those, you can grab one of those, or your black brush pen would be great too. All right, I'll see you in a minute. So let's do some pooling of ink here. I'm going to pick up my Identa pen here. I love this pen because it's really great for pooling lots of ink in your piece. And I'm going to start by coming into where we were before with Walk the Line. And I'm just going to go ahead and put a little circle inside of Walk the Line here. And then I'm going to go ahead and pool my ink. Now some of you with the white gel pens might want to put it in with your white gel pen, but if you don't have a white gel pen, this is a really easy way to ink this in. And also, if you don't have a thick nibbed pen, it's fine. It's just going to be a little bit more work is all. It'll take just a skosh longer, but that's part of the meditation anyway, so it's all good with me. So you can see how just by doing that really gives high drama to this whole piece here. I just love doing the black. So you can see that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it again, and I'm going to come up into that upper left hand corner, do a nice circle, and then once again pooling the ink. You can see that my pen is working in a circular-like motion. I find that when I work in a circular-like motion, I have less of the background that pokes through. And look at how beautiful that is. Isn't that so cool? It just gives a really neat drama to the whole piece. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine. And then when we come back, we're going to do some pooling of ink around the cardinal. Okay, so I'm going to pick up my pen again, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do some pooling of the ink. Now, you will notice that the plant or our oops me is right in front of where the cardinal's face is, and that was intentional because we're going to be using a lot of black in this piece, and I didn't want to lose the face of the cardinal. So you want to make sure that you don't bring any black near around the face of the cardinal. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to start to pool my ink around the piece here. So you can see that I'm going to work all the way around, and I'm just bobbing and weaving around our little cardinal here. And this is going to just make this pop right off the page. And what I also love about this is that it's going to bring a nice relationship between the cardinal and our dark pieces that we have over there. Little piece there. Okay. So you can see that I'm going to come in and I'm just bobbing and weaving around. And let's go ahead and do a little bit of zooming in on this. around, really taking my time. Now, if you didn't want to use the black, you could go ahead and use a color behind all of this. So if you wanted to use like a beautiful purple or a really beautiful kind of red for a sunset, you could do that. You could do all sorts of things with it. I'm going to be using blue behind our flowers, so I'm not going to encourage you to use blue because of that. I want to give it a little bit of a juxtaposition, and if you want to wait until the end to decide what you're going to do behind your Oops Me and the berries, you can wait until the end too. Don't have to do it now. So you can just see that I'm just pulling this in. And you really want to take your time around the orbs and around your bird head. But you can see the gravity that this gives. It gives a really neat kind of graphic feel to the whole piece, which I really, really enjoy. And once we start doing our shading and everything, it's really going to have quite the kick. So you can see that I'm just finishing that up. And then I'm going to come down into this corner right in here and bring a little bit of black in there. And look at how pretty that is. So I've got this side done, and I'm going to go ahead and do this side as well. And then when we come back, we'll start to do some color and work in the center. Okay? So take some time with yours. Don't rush. And if you don't want to do this right now, you can always just jump into color and do the background later. Isn't that so fun? I'm loving this. Such a fun little tangle here. And I just love that it just feels very fun and graphic to me. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into the center here, and we're going to be doing a gemstone in the center. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an aura. And I'm going nice and slow here. And then I'll do another aura on the inside. This is going to be a faceted gemstone. And you're going to see me come in from the corner and connect to the corners, just like so. And that just gives that a little bit of a pop right in the center. And wait until you see what we do with the color. It's going to be really fun. All right, so go ahead and finish up yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start in with some color. So we're going to start in on our walk the line here, and I'm going to be working with 3 colors. You're going to see me have a red, an orange, and a yellow. Now for those of you who are Prismacolor fans, I'm working with magenta here, which is PC930. I also have in my hand one of my favorite oranges in the Prismacolor line. This is the cadmium orange, which is PC118. And then finally, I'm going to be working with the sunburst yellow, which is PC917. And this has a really nice earthy tone to it. So we're going to be working with those particular colors here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by bringing in a little bit of the red first. Now you'll notice that my pencil is really well sharpened up, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to dust in a little bit of that red. Now notice I'm holding the pencil really far back and I'm working on the side of the lead. Now for those of you who have never done color with me before, remember each pencil is 3 different colors. You have light, you have medium, and you have dark. It's all about the pressure that you put on the pencil. So I'm going to go really, really lightly here. And I'm going to start to dust in. Now you'll notice that I'm kind of following the wave of the petal. So I'll dip back when it goes in, and when it goes out, I'm going to come up a little bit. Nice circular motions. Coming in and going out. Really, really soft and easy. I'm going to do the same thing right up in here. So you're going to see me follow that line, coming up and over, coming into this area in here, dipping down, and just following the wave. Now once I've had a chance to do that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come in and I'm going to press a little bit harder on that pencil. And I'm going in with a little bit more pressure. I'm still working on the side of the pencil because we've got so much space to fill. I would say this is a medium pressure. And I'm going to start to cast a shadow behind this petal too. Notice how I'm leaving the tips of these petals nice and light. I'm going to be adding a little bit of orange to the tips just to make it have a little bit of variation. Once I have that, I'm going to come back in right along the edge and I'm going to really give this a push. I'm going to come in over here and fall in along the line, giving it a little push, really looking for the drama here. You can see how electric that's getting. Coming in around here again. And then what I do is I like to soften it up a little bit. So you can see that I'm kind of breaking that line of demarcation a little bit just by going over and doing little circles just a touch lighter. And just kind of shoring it up the way that I want it to be. Now once I've got that, I'm going to come in and I'm going to bring a little bit of orange into the tips. So you can see that that orange is good and sharpened up. Look at how pretty that is. Isn't that gorgeous? Love that. And then coming in and dipping in as well right in here. Could be chrysanthemums. Those are really popular this time of year. I love a good mum, right? Now, you're thinking to yourself, well, what about that yellow that she was talking about? The yellow is going to be for blending here. So I'm going to come back in up at the top and I'm just going to let it dip down. And it's going to really kind of set that red ablaze, which I really love. Brings in a lot of warmth. Coming in over here as well. Now, if you're working with really toothy kind of paper and you might see a little bit of it, you may decide that you want to come in and use a little bit of a blender. Now you can see that I've got a little bit of my red in my hand, and I'm kind of just, going back and forth, getting the color kind of just how I want it to be. So if you feel like you've lost some of that red, you can go right over the top of that orange and yellow and start to bring some of that red back in. It's almost as if we're using it as a blush to go over that color. And this is really kind of picking up that nice electricity that I love to do. I love to layer colors. I think that when you layer colors, you get a really rich feel to it. Now let's talk about white. So you can see I've got my PC938 here, and if I zoom in on this, you can see there's a little bit of texture in my paper. But what happens if I bring a little bit of white down into it? See how that starts to erase the toothiness in the page? Isn't that magical? I just love that. So you can come in and start to bring in a little bit of white and let it kind of smooth out the page here. So lovely and soft. You can see that I can really erase those little craggly lines that we get. It's just a little bit of texture in the paper, but it really does soften it up. I'm a little hesitant to bring it too close to that really dark red line because I don't want to lose that darkness. Anytime you bring a little bit of white into anything, it's going to give it a little bit of a pastel feel. But you can always keep working over the top of it. So people ask me all the time, why don't you use a blender? And if you've ever worked with a blender, you will find that it's very difficult to work over the top of it. And so for me, when I get to layering colors, I can come back in, and this gives me the freedom to come back in and add more of that intensity if I want it, or less of that intensity if I want it. So you can see that I'm just kind of diving in and bobbing and weaving and going back and forth. So you keep playing with yours. I'm going to finish up working with mine, and then I'm going to switch over to the opposite side. Now, because it's going to be the same thing over there, I'm not going to show it twice. So if you want to start the video back over again and rewatch, or have us do it together, you can absolutely do that, and that's just fine, okay? So take your time. Enjoy the process, enjoy these reds and oranges together. I just love these colors together, okay? See you in a minute. Look at that. It's just on fire. It looks so fun. I love doing this kind of shading. Anytime I'm working on a piece, it just really brings it to life, and I just love this particular tangle for doing shading with. So we're going to continue with these same colors that we were working with here, and we're going to let our cardinal come forward. And so for me, whenever I'm working on a piece, I always like to have color moving around so that your eye can kind of follow it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around to this cardinal here, and I'm going to just lightly dust some of that magenta into the cardinal here. You can see that I'm working around his body and just starting to bring it in. So this is just laying the foundation for the cardinal here. And then I'll come back in and I'll start to bring a little bit more pressure in at the top and around his face. And you'll notice that I'm going to bring a little bit of pressure right around where the wing is, but I'm not going inside of the wing just yet. So I'm just giving it a little bit of pressure. And you can see that right where his belly is, I'm leaving it lighter. And that's because I'm going to add a touch of orange into his belly to give it a little bit of a blush. I'm going to come in over here and add a little bit of heaviness into the tail, but just leaving the tips of the tail nice and light. Now to come into the wing here, I'm just going to bring a little bit of a shadow inside of the wing. So once I've got that the way that I want it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up my orange and just bring a little bit of a blush of orange into his belly. And bring it up into his wing. So I don't want him to turn all orange. You know, mostly these cardinals, they're really kind of like a bright red, but they're a warm red. But I like to, you know, use different colors to express that. And then I can come in right where those colors are meeting each other and just do a little bit of that circular shading with the white pencil. So you can see how that gives it a really soft blush. And then I'll come in right in here as well and give that a soft blush. I'm going to come back in with a little bit of that yellow right over the top. And just start to get that red to pick up a little bit more strongly. And then I'll come back in with a little bit more of that magenta and just let it kind of tone it up a little bit. And you can see that just by doing that, it really gives that cardinal a pop and makes him come forward, doesn't it? You know, color moves in light, and so I always love to see a little bit of color movement whenever I'm doing animals like this. You know, they're never one color. They're always moving and have this really great feel to them. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on both of these, and then when we come back, I'm going to add a little bit of extra tangling into the cardinal. So you go ahead and do yours on this one, and then I'll come in and I'll finish in for the other side. So we're going to let go of the reds for a little bit, and I'm going to start to pick up my greens. And so I have in my hand the lime peel green, which is one of my favorite colors, PC1005. And then I also have olive green in my hand, which is PC911. Now, if you don't have the olive green, you could use grass green, which is a really beautiful color in your Prismacolor set. There's many different dark colors that are wonderful. You could use the marine green or the peacock green. All of those are really nice, but the grass green is a really nice one too, and that's PC909 if you wanted to use that. So I'm going to start with the lighter of the two here, and so really what I'm looking for is a light green and a dark green. I'm going to take the light green, and you can see that it's really well sharpened up, and I'm going to come up into Oops Me here. And I'm just going to go very, very lightly and build a foundation for Oops Me. Now you'll notice that it's just a quick dusting of color. I don't want to oversaturate it because we're going to be doing a lot of blending in Oops Me. Now once I've got that, I'm going to pick up that darker color, and you want to make sure that it's really well sharpened up. And let's go ahead and zoom in on this. And you're going to see me come in right underneath that first petal, and I'm going to start to bring a little shadow that goes about halfway through the petal. And I'm going to continue those little shadows coming all the way down. And you'll notice that I'm not going heavy with that darker green because it's already heavily pigmented. I really don't have to push hard. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side, giving it a little bit of a shadow. Notice how I'm leaving the light. Always want to leave a little bit of light. Keep it interesting. And then I'll come in right along the black line and I'll give it a little bit of a push. And then lastly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-pick up that original green and I'm going to start to blend in there. And you'll notice that I'm still leaving a little bit of the light on the outside edge. Watch how the pencil is working in a circular-like motion. I'm trying to move around the pigment of that darker green. See how it's going in little circles? That's what we're looking for. Same thing over here. Nice dusting. Same thing over here. Look at how soft that is. Isn't that so pretty? So it really goes so nicely inside of there. Now, if you feel like you still need to do some blending, you can always come in and soften things up with a little bit of that white if you're getting kind of a little bit of crazing in your paper and whatnot. You can always come in and do a little bit of dusting, and you can see how that's taking out a lot of that wildness of the paper and just soften it up. So I'm going to do the same thing on both sides. And then the thing that I'm going to do for the top is I'm just going to add in a little bit of dark green at the bottom and then a little bit of lightness up at the top. Okay? So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to add a little bit of color into those little berries. Isn't that so fun? It just brings a little bit of happiness to me. I hope it's bringing some happiness to you. So I'm going to come in right in here where we've got these little bubbles where our little berries are going to be. And you can see that I've got that magenta back in my hand here. And let's go ahead and zoom in on this little area right in here. So you can see that I'm going to go ahead and just dust in half of that little berry in here. And you can see that I'm going in pretty lightly. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to give it a little bit of pressure right on the edge. So I'm leaving a little bit of white, and then I'm going to just have this really kind of light magenta color. And so by doing this, we're creating a little bit of holiday flair, if you will. And and just getting a little bit of lightness into those little berries. And you can have as little or as much as you like. I'm just going to get in there, and you can see that that's already changing this quite a bit. And giving it a little bit of a push. And then down in here as well. Just coming right over and giving these a little push too. So you can see that that's already started to make that feel very festive and fun. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out here and go ahead and do the other side. So you go ahead and do yours as well. So I'm going to start to bring a little bit of contrast into the piece here. So we've got these colors that are kind of bobbing and weaving through the piece. The red is really defined throughout. And so I'm going to pick up two blues that I have here. This is the light aqua. This is PC992, one of my favorites in the Prismacolor set. You can see because it's getting tiny. And then I also have in my hand the peacock blue, which is really a beautiful color. If you have this in your Prismacolor set, please give it a really neat check out because it is a very moody kind of color, and I really do like it a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the peacock blue. And by the way, if you don't have the same color as me, just use a light blue and a dark blue and you'll be just fine. So I'm going to start with the darker blue first, and I'm going to start to dust into the edge in here. And you can see that I'm just going along the outer rim, giving a really nice soft shadow to the piece. And I'm just going to go ahead and let it kind of jump out a little bit. And I'm exaggerating the lines of that petal. You can see that I'm continuing the wave here. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press a little bit harder right along the edge, almost as if I'm creating a shadow again into the piece. And then once I have that, I'm going to come in with that light aqua and I'm going to do little circles and kind of break it up a little bit. And as I get closer to the center, I'm going to lighten up my touch. And I just love how those colors work with each other. Primary colors are just so beautiful together. And then I'll come in with a little bit of that white that we were talking about before, and you want to make sure that you clean off the top of it because you don't want to rub the orange into the blue. It will give you mud. And just notice how that blue picks up with that white. Isn't that so pretty? Really beautiful. Love that corner. Just high, high drama so that when I come around, look at that. Woo-wee! That is just so pretty. So go ahead and do your blue over in here as well. And then when we come back, we're going to work on our gemstone. So let's keep using the blue here. I have the light blue in my hand, and we're going to start to go into the center of this piece here and start to do a faceted gemstone. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start by dusting in a little bit of that blue into the center piece here. And you can see that I'm going to go around the center here and start to dust in. And then I'm going to start to come into the just before the middle, so not totally in the middle. And I'm going to press a little bit harder and just give this a little bit of that light blue with a little bit of sheen in it. And I'm going to do a similar feeling on the bottom. Now you can pick up a little bit of your white pencil and start to blur the edges a little bit. And then I'm going to come over to this side right in here, and I'm going to give it a little bit more of a push all the way through. So I'm not leaving a white sheen here. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up that dark blue now, and I'm going to start to come into this side and start to give that a little bit of a press. I'm also going to come into the bottom and give this a little bit of a press. And if you feel like you want to let it be a little bit deeper, you can let it be a little bit deeper. And then I'm going to come over to the other side and I'm going to do a little bit of the sheen in the center again. And I'll do the same thing up at the top. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of that white again, and I'm going to start to really give that a nice blending at the bottom and on the sides. Coming over here and giving this a little blend. Over here. And just cleaning it up a little bit. Give it a little softening. And then once I have that, I'm going to come into the center and I'm going to add that really nice light blue first. And you'll notice that I'm leaving a little bit of lightness in that lower left-hand corner. And then I'll come over into the top here and give this a little bit of a deepening. And then I'm going to come in and blur it out a little bit so that it really gives it a nice gemstone feel. So, you can kind of play with this and see where you want the pieces to fall. You just want to make sure that you get it nice and clean. Really, the more of that background that's gone, the better. So little white pieces poking through is not what we're looking for here. We really want to get this gem nice and saturated. Pretty sapphire for the season. I'm just coming up and continuing to work around until you get it the way that you want it. And look at how that's starting to really come together. Super fun. You can see that I'm picking up that lighter color and working around with it, using it to blend so that we get those deeper sapphire colors. And come into these corners and add a little bit of depth as well. Getting that richness of the sheen. Isn't that so cool? Love playing with these until you get it just the way you like it. So go ahead and play with yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to do some shading with some graphite. Isn't that so lovely? I think this is so fun. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up my graphite pencil, and you can see that I've got a tortillon with me. Now, if you don't have a tortillon, you can use a Q-tip to help you do your blending with the graphite here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with the beginning pieces that we worked with where we started this beautiful composition. And so you can see that I've got a line right here, and I'm going to do a little dusting of that graphite. This is just a number 2 pencil. And then I'm going to pick up the tortillon and give it a little blend. And then I'll come back in and give it a little bit of pressure just to get a nice shadow off of it. So we want to make these lines look like they're over layering with each other. I'll come to the next one and do the same, so I'm just going to go in. And then I'll come back and do a little bit of heavier pressure, blending it out. And then I'll go ahead and come over to the other side, dust around, coming back and giving this a little bit of pressure. And then once again, coming up on this side. And giving it a little bit of pressure. And look at how that brings a little bit of depth into it. And if you want, you can go to the outside edges and add a little bit of graphite to the outside edges as well. You can see that I'm just kind of running around and dusting that in. And then I'll come in and give it a little push. Leaving a little sheen in the center of each of those lines to make it just a little bit interesting. Now I'm going to take some of that graphite and I'm going to come back to walk the line here. And I'm just going to add a little dusting on either side of the first rim of walk the line. And I'm just going to blur it in. You're going to see that I'm going to leave a little light in the center. I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom. Just like so. If you want to add a little bit more heaviness to the outside edge, you can come back out to the outside edge and give this a little bit of pressure. A little bit of pressure down there too. Look at how pretty that is. And then finally, if you wanted to, you could come back in with your green. And if you wanted to, you could just do a little dusting of green inside of those little orbs that we have in here. And you can see what that does is it gives a nod back to the other parts that have green in them. And you can see I've got my dark green that I'm coming in with and just adding a little bit of a shadow on the outside edge. And I just love the way that that plays into the rest of the piece. Isn't that pretty? So that when I zoom out, look at how this has a really nice relationship with that. Isn't that lovely? The other thing that you can do with your graphite is you can come back to where your bird is standing and add a little bit of a dusting of graphite right underneath where the legs would be and give that a little bit of graphite, which is kind of fun. Okay, so go ahead and work on yours. I'm going to work on mine, and when we come back, we're going to add just a couple of highlights with a white pen. I love the way that those look. Isn't that so fun? So I'm going to come back in with a little bit of orange before we start adding our white highlights, and just give his beak of a little bit of orange there, just so that it pops right off of the green. And then I'm going to pick back up my pen for a moment. I realized that we did not add our detailing into our little cardinal here. And we're going to do a tangle called Shattuck. And Shattuck is a really fun tangle. So let's write this down here. And this is a headquarters tangle. And basically how Shattuck works is, I'm going to just make a small square so that I can contain it for you. I love Shattuck because it builds out quite nicely. So you can create these little arcs. I tend to do them in threes. And you just kind of build off of the side. You can see that I'm just letting it grow. And this tends to make a really great pattern for feathers when you're working with birds and whatnot. So you can see that I'm just kind of building it up as I go. Such a beautiful tangle and super easy, super fun. You can just doodle with this, and it makes an excellent border if you want to put it on a border or decorate a card with it. It's really fun. So I'm going to come back to our bird here. And I'm just going to start with the tail end of his wing. And let's go ahead and zoom in on him so that you can really see him. And all I'm going to do is just do some of those arcs right into his wing. And this is going to make his wing have a little bit of definition from the rest of his body. Super fun and super easy. Let's come down to this little guy right over here. Do the same. And you really can see how that just brings some nice definition into those pieces. So I'm going to pick up my white pen here, and I happen to be working with the Sakura Jelly Roll 10 this morning. And, whatever white pen that you enjoy working with is fine. I'm going to come into where the gemstone is, and I always get my pen started on my finger, and I'm just going to put a little white dot right in the center to give that some sheen. And then, our berries that we have, I'm going to come over to the berries and give them a little white dot in the darkest corner so that they have a little sheen too. Now you could really go hog wild with the white pen on this piece, but I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to add a couple of little things. If you wanted to add some little stars in the background, you could add stars or maybe even a little bit of snow. So wherever that's kind of speaking to you, you can kind of come in with a little bit of that dusting of snow just to give it the holiday feel. And I always love to just add a little bit, not a ton. So you could do that in the background as well. And for me personally, I just love the idea of giving that the holiday kind of shimmer. The other day we got a really nice light dusting of snow up here, and I took the dogs out and went walking in the forest, and watching that snow fall, it's pretty magical. I'll come in and add some more snow in the background over here. Wherever I can, just add a little bit. maybe down in here. And if you wanted to come up over into the flower as well, you could add a couple of those in here. Now remember, these pens are a little persnickety, so the lighter you go, the more the ink flows. And if you're having trouble with it, clean off the head of the pen and it will be just fine. It is tricky though, so give yourself some time to get used to working with them over the color pencil, so that when I zoom out, let's come back and zoom out, it just makes it feel really fun. I'm going to bring in a couple of other iterations of this particular class. I've been playing with it for the last couple of days and just really loved working with it. And so you can see in here, instead of using a cardinal, I used the dove, and I also added in some acorns to it to give it a little bit of fun and interest. And then I also did the center with a really nice gemstone. Just a different way of playing with it. So I'm going to go ahead and put my chop in the piece, and your chop is your way of signifying that you have finished. And you know me, I always love to hide my chop, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come right underneath this little guy and give my chop right here. And this is a really fun time to just look over the piece and offer gratitude for the time spent creating today. It's a really wonderful way of practicing self-care, which I think is really important in this day and age, and I hope that you agree with that. And so if you enjoyed the class today, please give it a thumbs up, and even better, give us a nice review. And even better than that, hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified every time I add a class to my YouTube page. So that's it for me today. I'm Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi. Thanks so much for joining me for the Kissing Cardinal class. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye for now.